What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and they finally released a new ban list, and it's going to take effect on September 14th, 2020, and we will not get a new update until no earlier than December 15th or whatever that means. But a new ban list. This is crazy, and this isn't going to be a live reaction. I just want to give my first impressions and some initial thoughts on where I see this format going, what changes I think could be made, and just my general thoughts on the ban list. This isn't a live reaction or anything because my live reaction was to first get on TCG Player and buy everything that I thought I needed to buy. I definitely overpaid for one card, I think, but we'll get into that later. Super exciting, but let's just go ahead and get into the list, and I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but the first thing that you're going to see on the ban list is the forbidden section, of course, and the first is that Block Dragon has been banned, and the question on everyone's mind is, does this kill Adamantimators? And to be honest, I don't think it does. I think you still have a lot of really strong Adamantimator plays and cards, but I just don't think it's going to be the same tier 1, dominant deck that it has been. It's still good. All of your Adamantimator cards are still actually very strong. You still have access to a lot of really good extra deck cards. You still have access to the Synchro engine, but it's just not as good as it was. All of the starters are still there. The only difference now is what you do with those starters and what you do where those combos and where you decide to take them. So I still think Adamantimators will be, a deck, but just not as dominant as it has been. So that's the first thing. Next, we see that Jet Synchron and O-Lion have also been banned. So these are huge hits to the Synchro engine with Jet Synchron. I think the Jet Synchron hit particularly hits Synchro Outlich because that was the main deck that was using Jet Synchron as a starter, whereas the other decks were just using it as sort of a mid-combo extender like Infernal Knights. They were never starting their plays with Jet Synchron, but rather you summon it, and then you can use it to help Synchro climb up into Charles. And so this doesn't really kill their combos in that deck, nor in Adamantimators or any of the other combo decks. It just kind of stops you from using as a starter, which again only really hurts Synchro Outlich. So I think this hit's actually fine. I think there are other level 1 tuners that people will go back to. I think Despot 001 will come back into the format because you can always revive that off of Auroradon or Linkross. I forget if it's 2 or 3. If it's 2, you can do Linkross. If it's 3, it has to be Auroradon. But regardless, I do think Despot 001 will come back into the format now. And then, let's see, the next hit is, O-Lion. This is pretty big because O-Lion just generated so much value with the token itself, and with that token being level 3 too, was very useful for going into Herald or being the same level as the other Mecha Phantom Beast tokens to help you get into other Synchro monsters. The actual level of it was very key to the combos, and if it had been any other level, I don't think it wouldn't have gotten banned, but O-Lion, oh well. I think it kind of fits in the same with Jet Synchron. It hurts a lot of the Synchro decks, but it doesn't kill them. I think there are going to be ways to continue the combos. They just might not be as broken, or they might require playing another brick or something like that. I don't think these decks will be dead, and I think Konami did a really good job of hurting these decks, so bringing their power level down just a little bit, but not murdering them. And so I think these are all pretty good hits actually. And so that is it for the forbidden cards. So moving on to the limited cards, we have Double Iris Magician, which at 1, I'm not quite sure how much this really does. I'd have to defer to someone like Triff or someone else who plays pendulums religiously. I personally have never played a lot of pendulums, and so I played the FTK when that was a thing, but that was about it. So I'm not really too sure what pendulums can do with this, but this doesn't feel like a good hit. This doesn't feel like something that really changes them because Double Iris itself doesn't do anything ridiculous, So that's that. We do have Rusty Bardiche back to 1. So this is huge. I think this is mostly because I think there's new Phantom Knight support coming on one of the future sets. So of course they're going to release this card for the list because money. But I do think this is a pretty big boost to decks like PK Fire. It's a big boost to other dark decks, really, pretty much, because you can just go into this and search extra defense in Fog Blade. So this is going to be good for, I think, once again, PK Fire. I can see Dragons maybe using this because they play a lot of darks. Orcust is another big deck that's going to be able to abuse this very easily. So Orcust, PK Fire, maybe Dragons. Generally, other dark decks, I'm sure, will be able to take advantage of this card. So this is a pretty nice card to have released from the ban list. And I guess it just depends on your perspective of how you feel about like generic searchable defense like this. You know, this is just a generic extra deck card you can toss into your already existing dark deck and then get Fog Blaze out of it. So if you like that, then this is, you know, gonna give you that. But if you do think that that's unfair, then this could lead to maybe some degeneracy, and so that's maybe a potential issue. But this feels like a money move to me. Next we have let's see, Called by the Grave, which has been limited, and this card sucked anyway, so I don't know why they limited it, but you know, sure. Now, before I didn't want to play 3, now I don't want to play 1. It just feels like such a weird hit to me. I'm not sure why they did this, because it didn't feel broken at all, and in a sense it almost felt kind of fair to have at least some kind of counter towards hand traps. And it makes me wonder whether Konami wants this game to lean more towards combo, because if they didn't want us to play combo, then we would have like max C at 3 like in the OCG, or we would have and they're taking away counters to max C and counters to other hand traps, so we already don't have things to stop combo. Now we're getting rid of the cards that stop the counters to combo as well, so it feels like they want us to continue playing combo. They didn't want us to continue doing all of the crazy spam stuff that we had been doing. They didn't want like that, and they have to keep the game fresh, so of course they're gonna have to ban and limit cards eventually. But it feels like overall in the TCG, they don't mind us playing these crazy combo decks as long as they're not FTKs, and I feel like Called by the Grave was sort of a hit in line with that. But yeah, it still sucks. Let's see, next we have Harpy's Feather Duster. This is a huge release from the ban list, something that a lot of people have been, like every single ban list for the past year, or maybe 2 years, people have been saying that this is going to get unbanned because it's been in the OCG for so long now, and we finally have it here in the TCG. And I think this is huge because it's sort of a pseudo Lightning Storm, and we all see how nice Lightning Storm is in the side deck. And of course, Lightning Storm is great for its ability to be both Harpy's Feather Duster or Raigeki, but at least the fact that we have one now, I think, opens up some new opportunities in the side deck and some new ways to play different cards, some new staples, which are always nice. And so I think this is a great card to have unbanned. Now, I do think it's probably a little overhyped right now. I think I overpaid for this, I'm pretty sure. Like, I should not have paid $30 for a Harpy's Feather Duster, but it is near mint first, so secret rare too. But I don't feel good about that one. I definitely do not feel good, because I feel like this whenever there's a ban list, whenever there's like a staple like that, the price for staples is always going to be higher than you would expect it to be, especially when something gets unbanned. So you almost have to get them very soon, because they're almost always going to level off at a higher value than what you'd get them for immediately. And so I had to pick it up immediately, because if they were at 20 when I was first getting them, and every time I try to check out, they would say there's no more cards in the cart left. So people were buying up the same copies very quickly. And so it feels like it's going to drive the price up, and it'll probably stabilize, I think, around, I mean, I would estimate, well, it's hard to say because there's so many printings of Harpy's Feather Duster, so I don't know, I'm not going to speak on that, I'm not a market watch guy. But let's go ahead and just get on with the list. I do think that this does kind of hurt back row decks and also control decks, because this is another card on top of Lightning Storm that people can side. Now, I'm not sure if people will side all of these, but I do think that the people who didn't have access to Lightning Storm will now start siding Heavy Storm. I keep saying Heavy Storm Duster, but Harpy's Feather Duster. I think this will definitely be a card that finds its ways in the side decks. Let's see what's next. I think that's it for the limited section. Then for the semi-limits, we have, oh, this is nice. We have Seer and Graph. These cards I've been asking for off of the limited section for so long. I really think they should be at 3, but I will gladly accept 2. And also, not to mention, I do really like that cult. This is 2 copies of Seer. This isn't a Seer and a Graph. Regardless, but I also do really like the Called by the Grave hit, because that was a very annoying deck to deal with in Burning Abyss. But yeah, Seer and Graph are both now at 2. I think this is a big help to the consistency, because seeing a card like Graph really does improve your plays, because it gave you access to Seer from deck. But also, now that Seer is at 2, it makes it so that drawing your 1 copy of Seer doesn't mean that it's more difficult to combo. You can just hold it in your hand, so it's a big boost in that regard. Also, it makes it so that you don't feel forced to constantly use your Seer Dante loop on Seer and Dante. You're allowed to do other things now and still know that you have access to another Seer. because a big issue before was like when you're grinding out, you're having to consistently use Seer and Dante on each other, because if you don't use Dante to add back Seer, you lose access to Seer, and if you don't have access to Seer, you have no way to really grind. But now you have another way to get to it. Now your extra tour guides or graphs, they can get you to that second copy of Seer and continue grinding. And so this is actually a very nice thing for Konami to do. Let's see, next we have ABC Dragon Buster back to 2. And so this is also I really like this a lot because it makes ABCs actually playable. Because when it was at 1, it was like you'd go first and you'd make your board, whatever it is, and you lose your Buster immediately and never have access to Buster again. It was just ridiculous. Unless you played cards like Magnet Reverse, I think it's called, whatever that quick play spell is, and like Monster Reborn to revive it. It was just a lot of work, and it just was not worth it. But with having Buster at 2, I do think ABCs is actually playable again, so that's a deck that I'm going to explore and maybe try to have some fun with, because I've loved ABC in the past, and I think I'll always love it, and so definitely something worth trying. And then the final card that has been limited is Totally Awesome, and so cool. I don't think this will have any impact on the meta at all. There are not even any decks that can summon it in the meta right now, so this is fine. And then finally, for the unlimited section, let's see, we have Makura the Destroyer. I don't even remember what this card does. I'm trying to remember it. It's been banned for so long, but I don't think it'll have an effect. If it was relevant, it wouldn't have gone from banned to unlimited. So I think this is fine. We have Tour Guide, which is back at 3. I think this is another nice move for Burning Abyss. This is so exciting as a Burning Abyss player. This is the only thing left to do now is maybe put Graph and Seer at 3, give us Beatrice back to 2 or 3. This is so nice. I'm so happy, guys. So happy about this. So Tour Guide being the 3 is huge. It gives the deck a little more consistency. I will say adding another normal summon kinda sucks, kinda hurts, and at the same time it does open you up to hand traps, but I'm not gonna act like Tour Guide isn't good. So this is a great move. Next we have Evigishki Gustkraken, and to be honest, I don't think this is a card that should ever exist I think it should be banned forever, in my opinion, because it's a hand loop card and it's very easy to summon back or summon multiples and add extra copies back to your hand. I don't think this card should exist, to be honest. Like, it's just way too good, and I hope that there's not going to be any way to abuse it. I remember back in the day, I don't remember which ARG it was at, but I played like a Gishki hand loop deck way back in the day. I think it was before I even had this YouTube channel, but yeah, you could easily summon Gustkraken like 4 or 5 times in a turn, and it loops. You look at, I don't remember if you look at 2 cards, but no, you do. You look at 2 cards in your opponent's hand and choose one to shuffle back into their deck. And that's broken because if you use it 4 times, you've likely seen their entire hand and gotten rid of 4 of it. So it's kind of like Smoke Grenade to where, oh, and Smoke Grenade, they didn't touch that, but it's like Smoke Grenade to where you're looking at your opponent's hand pretty much, but instead of sending 1 card back, you're sending 3 or 4 cards back, and it's absolutely insane. I don't think this card should exist, and there's going to be a way to abuse it, I think. It'll just be interesting to see how. Let's see, next we have Pantheism of the Monarchs, back to 3. That's also a big hit to a big boon for Monarchs. It's going to help them a lot with their consistency, as well as giving them also consistency, but it's a draw card, but it also lets them search. Just an overall amazing card. I'm going to be very excited to see what Monarchs do right now. I think that Celgene, the Lunar Dragon or whatever, the new ultra rare from Rise of the Duelist, I talked about it in the underrated Rise of the Duelist cards discussion video that I did a while back. I'll put a link to that in the cards, but I do think that's going to be a very interesting card for Monarchs now that Monarchs are essentially back at full power, because I think Ether is also at 3 now. So we got Ether at 3, Pantheism at 3, Tenacity, everything's at 3 now. So let's see what these Monarchs can do, because I do think it's Stormfort's at 3 as well, but I do think the engine itself is pretty strong. The downside is just them being level 8s, but they have ways around it, and there's going to be ways to abuse it. And I'm super excited for this. I think I might also try like a Burning Abyss Monarch deck again, because that was also one of my favorite decks of all time. So much fun, so much synergy. That'll be something worth trying out. But Pantheism to 3, that's big. And then finally we have Widow Anchor also to 3. This I don't think is a big difference. It's not a big deal. It does help Sky Strikers a little bit. You will draw it more often. You have more copies of it in your deck, which is going to help you grind. But at the same time, it doesn't push Sky Strikers over the edge. It doesn't make them like tier 1 or anything. So, yeah, don't overhype it. It's still the same deck. Give me Engage, and then we'll talk. But I will be updating all of my Sky Striker videos. Don't worry about that. But I don't think that this puts Striker over the edge. But that's pretty much it for the list. Overall, though, where I can see the format going, I still think, well, one thing that is huge actually is that they did not hit Alistair or the Invoked Engine at all. That didn't get hit. Dogmatica, well, of course you're not going to hit Dogmatica this early, but that didn't get hit. So I still think that Invoked Dogmatica, which was like the 5th best deck of the previous format, you bring everything down a notch. I think it does become, closer to maybe being top 3 or even the best deck right now. So that's something that you want to watch out for early on in the format. Another deck is Infernal Knights. I think that because they're only losing O-Line, only using Jet Synchron, a lot of their main plays are still going to be possible. I think they're going to be a deck that can pivot very quickly and figure out what their new combos are going to be, and then continue to have the same level of dominance, if not more, to take up that space that the other combo decks were kind of having. Like they're going to have a larger market share of the combo territory. I think that's going to be big, something to look out for. I think that Adamanticators are going to drop down to probably like tier 2. I see them just going back to what they were initially, where they were ending on like IP and Appaloosa, maybe a Savage Dragon, maybe a Herald, but it's not going to be easy. But I mean, they still have access to the Synchro Engine, so it'll be interesting to see what they do, but they won't be like the best combo deck for sure anymore. And Dragon Link's another deck that I think will be able to pivot very well, just due to the access of the different cards that they have. They still have the full guard Dragon Engine. They still have, the Chaos Engine going for them. They have a lot of things going for them. And because they're so flexible and they're able to use so many different cards, I think they'll also be able to pivot very quickly. So as of right now, I see Dogmatica, Infernal Knights, and Dragon Link being the top 3 decks. Eldritch will still be 4th, but Synchro Eldritch I think will be relatively mundane. The only way that they're going to have the combo now, the only 1-card Needle Fiber, I think, is like the DD Lamia and DD Gate. That's a combo that they were playing before very sparingly, but I think they might at least try to play that now, but it's just not as consistent as Jet Synchron was, because you had 6 copies of Jet. And so that'll be interesting. I think they'll probably end up going back to more control variants, or the Dogmatica control variant. I think that'll be big. There's still a lot of synergy between those archetypes and those engines. So I think that'll be where I see the Eldritch going. And the Eldritch engine itself, Scarlet's still at 3, Lord's still, fine. I think their engine's still at full power. They're going to be able to play very well. Just, themselves as a control deck are still better than most other rogue decks. And so I do see Eldritch being solid in 4th place this time. So I guess the top decks will still all probably continue to be the top decks, but this does make it so that they're beatable. Like before, a deck like Adamantipator was not beatable for rogue decks unless you drew, multiple sided cards or hand traps. It's not going to be like that anymore. These decks are going to have some flaws now, and it's going to be up to the other players to take advantage of it. Another thing that I did really like about this list was that they did not hit Link Ross or Needle Fiber. I think this is really good for a lot of reasons. Mostly I like this because of the Shaddoll combo, of course, because Needle Fiber is a 1-card, or not, I shouldn't say a 1-card anymore, but Needle Fiber equals Dragoon plus Winda, which is pretty neat. You just gotta find ways to get to Needle Fiber now. And same with Link Ross. Link Ross probably should have been hit though, just my opinion, but I do think it's good that Needle Fiber is still in the game, because I think that a lot of decks relied on it to just get access to other cards within their engine, or access to Selene access code, which I think a lot of decks rely on to put damage on board. I think Needle Fiber is important for the game right now, so I'm very happy that they kept it, but maybe Link Ross could have gotten banned too. But that's pretty much it. That's my initial thoughts on where I see the format going from here. Once again, I think things are not going to change too much on a, if you look at things from just the surface level, you just see oh, what are the best decks right now? We're still going to have the same best decks, but they are going to be more human. No, that's a weird word to say here. Not human. They are not humans at all, but they're going to be beatable. They're going to be more fair. They're going to be openings and opportunities for the other decks of the format, the other rogue decks, and whatever decks you want to play. You're going to be able to actually play with them now without fear of losing the die roll and automatically losing. And so, I mean, you still have that, but not to the same extent. But that's pretty much where I see the format going, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this video was like not super exciting or anything, because I'm not going to do any editing or anything like that. Nothing interesting's on the screen, but hope you guys got something useful out of it, and I will see you guys in the next video.